Welcome to our podcast, Evolving Educators. My name is Donda Slayton, and I'm a new Caney ISD administrator, and I'm here with my favorite producer, Chris Hurst. Chris, how's it going?
Hey, Donda. Nice to be back on a podcast with you.
Yes, it's nice to be here, too. I love being at West Fork. You know how I feel about this space. It's a great place.
I know. I'm jealous that they get to work here every day.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, today I am very excited about the guest that we have. Matt Calvert, Superintendent of Schools, is going to join us, and his two members of his cabinet, Christy Schaffner, the Executive Director of Students of School Leadership and Learning, and we have Christy Gates, our Executive Director of Human Resources. And
That's awesome.
They are here to talk about, have you heard about the Holdsworth Center, Chris?
You know, vaguely, but I'm not really sure what it is.
Yes, so this is really going to be what an aspiring administrator needs to hear, because this group has been through a whole program at the Holdsworth Leadership Center in Austin, and they have walked them through how to lay the foundation for growing your own leaders in your own district. And so this will be a really informative session.
That's really cool. I can't wait to learn more about this, selfishly.
Yes, this will be great.
All right, when we come back from the break, we're going to have Mr. Calvert, Ms. Schaffner, and Ms. Gates.
Welcome back, Chris. And so today we have a very special guest today. And so we're very excited to talk to Mr. Calvert and Ms. Christy Gates and Ms. Christy Schaffner about the Holdsworth Leadership Program.
Yeah, that's so exciting.
Yes, this is going to be a good one, and it's going to be very important information for people who are aspiring to be leaders in New Caney ISD. So, Mr. Calvert, why don't you just start us off and just tell us a little bit about the Holdsworth Leadership Program and just explain what that even is.
Sure. Yeah, Holdsworth is a campus in Austin, founded by the HEB Corporation. You know.
Of course.
Mr. Butt's mom was a public school teacher, and her maiden name was Holdsworth. And so while some people associate it with HEB, the funny thing is, and we even thought this going there, like, oh my gosh, there's going to be HEB branded snacks, all that kind of stuff. There's nothing HEB there. But Mr. Butts has a passion for public education, and so they designed the Holdsworth Academy to be a place for leaders to retreat to, teachers to retreat to. And if we're so busy around here, it just gives you a chance to stop and think for a minute about what you're doing, how to be intentional about it, how to actually take something back from your time there. And so there's a lot of intentionality and a lot of purpose-driven thought put into the center, the setup, what you see, what you don't see. They really do take great care of you so you can focus on the task at hand while you're there. So it's been a phenomenal experience, just experiencing the location and the way that they set things up there at the campus.
So what are some key components of the program that even drew you to the campus in Austin?
Well, what got my wheels turning on this is we've been talking about for a while in our district is hiring a principal should be the easiest thing we do. You know, if we're doing it right, people are seeing what we're doing, they know what New Caney's about. When that time comes, because we're growing, and you know what, life happens. So it's like, you know, when we have to make that decision and that position comes open, it's like, that should be easy. It should be a no-brainer. And so, you know, you go to your conferences and you hear different topics and different sessions. And so one of the common ones we would go to talked about Holdsworth. And the term they used was developing your leadership bench. You know, it's kind of like, hey, who's next? You know, that kind of thing. Just preparing people just to get them ready to get in the game. And so what we found is, you know, again, going through that process of interviewing principals, it's like, okay, on paper, they're good. They're checking all those boxes. You know, they're certified. They've got experience. But what we were having trouble with is defining what it is, you know, because we'll brag a little bit. We feel like we do it better than most in New Caney ISD.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, it's like, okay, how do we put into words what it is, what we're looking for? And so that's what the leadership definition is. That's a big part of Holdsworth. So that was my driving force of getting behind it is, okay, like you said, if we're going to grow our own, put something out there, how do they know what they need to do to be a leader in New Caney? And honestly, you know, it's also a great tool of this may not be the place for me either. You know, so what makes a leader great in New Caney? What do we think is special? And that's what we work through at the leadership definition. And like you said, before you get in that pipeline, you kind of need to know where you're going. And so that's really the whole point of it was, okay, let's put into words what we're thinking. Because the way it works is, you get, for example, Donna, you go to Kiefer, there's round one with campus staff or principal, and they're like, okay, we like these 3 people, any one of them could be our principal. Well, then we get to cabinet, the second round, and we're talking to people, and we could tell in the room when we're talking to people, it's like, okay, they've got it. So it was just putting that on paper to let people know these are some intangible skills that we value that you can work on, gain experience with to better prepare you for when you get in front of us.
Oh, I love that. So really what you're saying is you reflected back and thought about what are those core values, beliefs, characteristics of people that were good principles and solid foundation for us, and how can we replicate that?
Absolutely.
And we just want to make a roadmap for others to follow.
And it's really not a me or even a we. We had a leadership definition task force made up of teachers, principals, assistant principals, directors, just a wide variety of people from around the district. And so it wasn't necessarily what the 3 of us are thinking about or doing in Austin. We brought that back, went through several meetings with that group.
I was going to ask you that actually. Was this a quick process?
No, we started going
over a year ago.
So our last session is this coming February. So we'll go December, February, and then we'll be graduates of the Holdsworth Center. So we incorporated people from the district. The 3 of us would go and talk and be like, okay, we think it's this. We'd bring it back. Well, no, it really needs to be this. And so it was truly a district process for people that, we identified that people that they either are leaders, they've got potential to be leaders. We talked to our principals, who are those key people on your campus? So we got together and they put into words what makes a good leader in their eyes and in Caney ISD.
So a refinement process. So that does take a long time. But I love that, Chris, how, this was really a lot of people, not just 3. We have 3 people with us that went to represent us at Holdsworth, but really you were taking back what a whole focus group was talking about. I love that. So what are the key components of this leadership bench or your Grow Your Own, this program that stood out to you that you thought would make particularly beneficial for us to take this on?
Really, it's just putting into words what people are looking for. Like you said, when somebody thinks they want to be a leader, it's like, okay, what do I need to do next? Well, the easy part is, against their focus is administration, assistant principals, going to principals. So the easy part is, okay, I need to go get my master's. Check. I need to take my test. Check. I need some experience. Check. It's after that we were just finding a hard time capturing what that was. And so we could see people who had that potential and be like, yeah, but they just, it's not that little something's still not there, And so that was my motivation behind Holdsworth is, like you said, we've got a lot of great people. I think their heart is in the right place. Their head is in the right place. They just need to know how to get there. And really the great leaders we already have, they really didn't have a coaching document to even reflect upon themselves to say like, okay, these are the things that are important to New Caney, and we've made it very clear along the way that what this isn't is a checklist to say, okay, I've done these 12 things. Where's my school? No, what it is, it's a coaching tool because eventually it will be all the way from cabinet level. It can even be incorporated into classrooms. What does a student leader look like? So it's a coaching tool of these are some traits. These are some skill sets. These are some values that we hold here at New Caney. And so this is what we want our leaders to embody in themselves.
I love that, Mr. Calvert. And so that brings me down to, so after you've developed this leadership philosophy and these leadership characteristics, then how do we continuously develop or go forth and show people what that looks like in action? We have the Aspiring Administrator Academy. Is that just one component?
Yes, that's one component, and that's something that we've had the Leadership Academy for a while, and it's been effective, but we felt like it just wasn't enough.
What are some things that you do in the Aspiring Administrator Academy that prepares the leaders for a leadership position?
So Ms. Gates and I work with several of our principals that are passionate about developing leaders, and every year we meet together and we plan what we think will help to develop them into the kind of leaders that we value in New Caney. And so you're one of those people.
Yes.
And when you join, you have a passion for mentoring and for growing our leaders. And that's something that you have shared with the Academy.
Yes.
So with the articles, with the Canvas course that you've created, and with this podcast.
Yes.
To share some best practices from our leaders that already are trying to grow leaders on their campus.
Yes. One of the things that I've seen, Mr. Calvert, is, we started the focus group and we started trying to narrow down and make that framework for what a leader looks like. And so we have our Aspiring Administrator Academy, and there were 4 face-to-face meetings, which are so important. But you can't have a meeting all the time, right? You'd never get any work done. But one of the things that I saw right away when Ms. Schaffner asked me to join the committee is that we were very adapted as what we were doing, and we needed another step. And so what that next level looked like, we talked a lot about, I know personally, I want to be a leader. You have to take yourself to the next level. And so I feel like with the Holdsworth Center and the things that I learned about the Holdsworth Center, we needed to provide that opportunity for them. And so we do still have our face-to-face meetings, which are so important because they get to meet with each other and have mentors and learn next opportunities, but also those things of, what do I read? What podcast should I listen to? What article should I be reading? We also like to give them an opportunity to have discussions in Canvas, and we have discussion boards and things like that. But it's things in a good way that we have already quickly laid the foundation, and we're ready for the next step. And that's really what brought about our Canvas course and this podcast. Is we want to offer a menu of options for our aspiring leaders. Ms. Gates, you always say, HR is like, and Ms. Land says, this is a one-stop shop. And so what are some things that you hope comes from your time spent at the Holdsworth Center?
Well, one of the things for me that I think is really important about the leadership definition work is that it's giving everyone hope. Because a lot of times think about your people that know they want to be a leader, but then you have a lot of people on your campuses that they haven't gotten that gentle nudge yet. They don't know they have that potential.
Yes.
So I think this document and this definition and this framework is really powerful in that way. Once everyone becomes familiar with it, to start looking for those competencies and those characteristics. What does that teacher that's in their classroom doing a great job, how can we get them inspired to know, hey, you can be more? Because I know that's my story, right? Someone came to me and said, I see something in you.
Yes.
Have you thought about being a team leader? Have you thought about going back and getting your master's degree? And so as we all start this common language of what we're looking for, I think it's really powerful in terms of identifying potential leaders that we could see in the future and grow the ones that are sitting in the chairs already, because it's a great self-reflection tool. You kind of just were speaking about that, and that's the word that popped into my mind is, if we can use this and truly be self-reflective in any seat that we sit in, our seats, your seat, any of them, the classroom chairs, how am I doing with all of these things that we say we value? Because at the end of the day, it's about, what do I think and what do I need to improve on? So
I love that. I love that. One of the things that also this framework reminded me of, Ms. Schaffner, is, we're always talking about strengths-based leadership. We talk about that in our aspiring leadership face-to-face meetings. And so when we know our people and we know their strengths, we could look at this framework and right away we should look at a few words and say, Matt Calvert's the guy for that job. Christy Gates, she's the lady for this job. So as we know our people, we're able to use that framework to match people to those characteristics and give them those leadership opportunities. And this is the one thing that I love about this Grow Your Own leadership pipeline that we're developing, is people will already understand, Mr. Calvert, where we're coming from. It's a big stretch when you go to a new district or a new place. That is a really big stretch. However, when we're growing our own people and they can just step into a leadership role, a huge barrier is already taken out of their way.
Absolutely.
Because they understand what our goals and our mission is going forward. So I love that about this framework. So just what excites you most about the future of leadership development in New Caney ISD? Anyone can answer.
I would say just the fact that we're having the conversation. I think a lot of times when it talks about promotions and people growing, it's almost like there's this veil of leadership there. Like, I don't want you to know what makes me good because you may come after my job one day, and I joke with the principals and assistant principals sometimes of, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? It gets people having conversations about, what's next for them. We talk to our kids all the time about being lifelong learners, all those kind of things. How can we improve? And to me, it kind of lifts that veil off of, it's okay to talk about what you want to do next. I'm not threatened if, Ms. Gates comes and say, I want to be a superintendent one day. What do I need to do that? Or when your APs may come to you at Kiefer and say, hey, I want to be a principal one day. So it takes that hesitancy away. It puts a conversation out there for people to actually have the conversation of, if I want to improve myself from a leadership capacity, what does that look like? And it's not just principals, assistant principals. Like we said, it's classroom teachers. I mean, we say all the time, the number one factor in a kid's education is that classroom teacher. So we need good teacher leaders too. And so just opening up that conversation of, let's talk about leadership. What does that look like? It kind of, there's not threatening. I'm not worried about it if somebody talks about, I want to do this or I want to do that. And I think our principals have taken that to heart, my cabinet has. So it's really just kind of opened up a lot of conversations about leadership and about what can we do to prepare ourselves for what's next.
I would agree with you so wholeheartedly, Mr. Calvert. And I'll tell you, even for myself, because recently, in the past couple of years, I've had to hire some new assistant principals. We're growing and those kinds of things. And I would say what it's done for me is you should want to be the principal. Because then you really know where the person's motivation is. It is not threatening. You're right. It's not threatening at all. I would hope the person I hire is wanting to be a principal because I know what they're in this for. They're in this to learn about the system and to grow themselves. They're not going to be stagnant, which is only going to benefit the kids. One of the things, I was looking at the Holdsworth Center website, and one of the things I love, a little statistic it had. Texas has 8,800 principals. Did you know that, Chris? 8,800 principals. And according to recent research by the Holdsworth Center, next to the child's teacher, of course, that's important, right? But next to the child's teacher, the principal has the most impact on learning. So I would say more than anything, we pour into our teachers and we're about to have Power Up, and we pour into our teachers and we make sure they have the resources. And I feel like our district, that's certainly what's kept me here, is I have had amazing training and resources. I have what I need to do my job. And that's a great feeling. And so now we're going to offer our leaders. Maybe that's where we fell short. You don't know what you don't know, right, Mr. Calvert? But we have a menu of opportunities, and we have a range of professional growth, and we have a pathway for you to go to that. So I love that. Were there any aha moments you had, or participating in this or in the program?
I think some of the biggest aha moments for me were when we came back and shared the information that we had learned with our focus group and with our principals and assistant principals and our executive directors, because the feedback we got from them and seeing them work through the leadership definition and the specificity, the feedback that we got was really powerful. We accepted every piece of feedback pretty much that we got. And so that really reinforced the core values that our district has, and that those people that we do have in leadership positions are very aligned to that. So that was powerful for me.
For me, I think it's just seeing everybody's true heart for coaching and growing their replacement. That's one of the things I say all the time is I should be always thinking about who am I training up to take my spot, and if everybody works from that pure-hearted place, I think that's one of the most powerful things that we can do is you're always thinking about how could I use this as a coaching tool? How's this person doing with their community outreach, right? So you're looking at those specific things and you're using it as a coaching tool and always thinking about that spirit of really trying to help the next person out, set them up to be even better than you were. You know, you always want whoever comes behind you to be a better leader, a stronger leader. And
Absolutely. We don't want to be the ceiling. We want to be the floor, right?
Yes.
And, you know, Mr. Calvert, the thing you've done so well in our district, and this, Ms. Gates, you made me think of this, is we are here to support. And I can tell you that's, you know, I have never picked up the phone, Mr. Calvert, that someone hasn't picked the phone up on the other side. Your cabinet, the cabinet's people, we have a source of support. This really is just the next step. We have everything in place. We have great resources. We have great facilities. We do great things for our teachers. And I love this coaching model of growing our leaders. And the fact that they're already here, we've already, because they've been teachers, they have been other leadership roles. They understand what our community expects from us too. You always say that to us, Mr. Calvert. We have to know what our community wants, what our values, our goals are, and they already have that barrier removed by you taking us through this process. It's amazing. So then what's next? What's next for us?
I think now that we've got it, the hard part is keeping it going. You know, what we don't want this to become, for what we're notorious for in education, is let's go get this great training, bundle it up, and then it's on a shelf in a year. So what we want to do is keep this language part of our daily conversations. I know I've already talked to a couple of groups, if, like, for instance, Miss Monroe the other day had a meeting with her directors. Well, I came down, we talked through one of the components of the leadership definition. So just incorporating it into your daily staff meetings, meetings with folks, just your daily language, and just putting that common language in place. It's almost, I know our campus issues are focusing a lot on tier one, the common language across campus, expectations, and everything. So it's almost, if I may make the comparison, like tier one for leaders. This is like the basic. This is where it starts right here. And so we're all talking that common language, common expectations. We all know the path we're going to go down. And like you said, we know the new Caney way. We've heard that a lot. And so for anybody to step in our shoes, that growth curve is exponentially harder for people unless you've been here. And so if we get somebody that adapts faster, knows our ways faster, that's what's going to be what's best for our kids. And
Mr. Calvert, what I love about this, sometimes we're very cautious about, well, that's the way we've always done it, being careful about that. But to me, this quantifies that. So we can say that's the way we've done it because we've put together careful focus groups, careful conversations, very intentional things that we can say, this is the way we do it, and this is why, and these are the characteristics. So I love that it's really given a definition to that. So we truly can say, this is what we do in New Caney, but it's not just because that's the way we've always done it, right?
No, it's effective and it works.
Yes.
One of the quotes I always like to use is, I think Muhammad Ali said it, it's not bragging if you can back it up.
I love that.
Well, again, we have a lot of, not just, the feel goods, we can quantify a lot of the data in our district because of the leaders we have. So it's not just this feel good, we like our people, we're just uber protective, but that's what's best for our kids, number one. And number two, it works. And we have the data to prove that it works.
We do. And one of the reasons that I'm understanding this even more is that this was a very long process. Mm-hmm. This involved many stakeholders. This was not a Mr. Calvert, Miss Gates, Miss Schaffner. This was many layers. That's what I love. And that's really what's going to make it so much more effective. So then going forward, I love a good logo, Mr. Calvert. And so I think one of the things that's really going to push this over the top is those characteristics are put in a true graphic.
Right.
And so could you talk a little bit about why it's important maybe to brand those characteristics? And the process you went through.
Well, and it goes back to, you don't want it just to become another binder on a shelf. And so that was honestly some of the toughest conversations that we had to have with our focus group was, coming up with the words was easy, but, it's kind of like Chris and some of our PR guys know the marketing of it. And because you do have to sell it. If it's not branded right and it doesn't catch an eye, or if it doesn't make any sense, then people are just going to drop it. And so, obviously being a fast growth district, building, we're always building something, whether that's, schools for kids, offices, natatoriums, band halls, whatever. We're always building something. And so that's why, after some refinement with our group, when you look at our leadership definition, the word builds hits on all of our competencies. You think about it, that's what we're doing. We're building our own leaders. And so again, Dr. Powers and Chris and some of their team, they captured that builds language, and there is a great graphic that we have out there, that has buildings on it, but it reflects, the categories and the competency things. So that way it's something that honestly, it needs to be a one pager. It doesn't need to be a book. We don't need to flip through it. If we can fit it on one page, somebody puts it on their wall or whatever it may be, just a slide in a slide deck, just to talk about, that's what it needs to be. Something that's easy, common language. And so we went with the theme of building, because obviously, sitting here in West Fork in literal active construction zone, we are building, and it's building not just the things we can see, but the things we can't see through this.
I love that. Chris, isn't that something that we took so much time? You think that you could just sit down and come up with a graphic, come up with some things. This was so intentional. So what I want our listeners to really understand when we talk about a leadership pipeline and looking for a leadership position is we did not take this lightly. This is something we joined an organization, the Holdsworth Leadership Program. Right. We had 3 central office staff go through a whole program. Sounds like more than a year-long program, but right down to the graphic and the words on it. So this wasn't just a meeting, a few meetings, and you put together some words and run it through some people. No, this was so intentional. It does sound like a great program. They really well thought out, and they thought of everything. Love that. Yeah. So then going forth, I'd like to hear just each one of you. What are your thoughts? Like, what do you think your next step for your kind of role in the leadership pipeline? What do you think your next steps are? Ms. Schaffner, let's start with you.
Okay, so for the curriculum and instruction department and for our campuses, one of the things we did this year is we have a couple activities for principals to share on their campus to do with their teachers. We want to make sure that every layer of our organization knows what our leadership definition is. We don't know yet every single leader out there, every person that has potential. And so I think communicating that information helps with not just buy-in, but ownership of the leadership definition. So I know that is what's next for us in our department. And we've also talked a lot with the instruction team too about what those characteristics look like on campuses. So we do have teachers who their next step is to work maybe on the district curriculum team or as a curriculum instructional coach. And so that's the area that we're really focused on right now, is making sure we have people ready to step up into those positions also.
Yes, very good.
From the HR side, I would just say that I think focusing on how to overly communicate this information, because like Mr. Calvert said, the fear that it could get lost, and just letting everyone see that this is what we value. This is, if you want to be on a leadership track in New Caney ISD, these are the things that we are, number one, looking for, but also what they can work on, and trying to, a lot of times in HR, we'll get those individuals that'll reach out for kind of coaching conversations, where they're trying to figure out what their next steps are. They don't know exactly what they need to do to become a principal or an assistant principal or an instructional coach or even a counselor, you name it. So they'll come to us, and being able to navigate through this conversation to try to inform them about what we're looking for, and then build those connections on how they can go back to their current place, wherever that is, and lead really from where they are sitting as they grow toward, meeting those expectations. So for me, it's exciting just to think about that potential bench that we talked about, just seeing it grow and really inspiring people who either may know that they're on a track to be a leader, or people that don't know they're on a track to be a leader, to say, you know what, I can do this, and I can grow in this area, and just build that bench so that when we have those unexpected vacancies or ones we even know that are coming, we have a strong group of high potential performers that are ready to step in. That's exciting from the HR world.
I love that. Yes, yes. Mr. Calvert?
Again, it needs to be more than just a me thing or an us thing. You want it just to be a New Caney ISD thing. Mm-hmm. You don't want it to be this, that superintendent one day, decided to do this and here it is. And so what I'm excited about is we've got great leaders all around us. You know, we tell people all the time, we've probably got the strongest group of principals anywhere that I've ever worked with. Our cabinet team is strong. You know, we're close as well. You know, our directors are good. So, you know, we've got good leaders now that came through a pipeline that we didn't even know existed. Now that we've got this pipeline that really hones in what makes us special, what makes us unique, I think it's just going to get even better. You know, and that's the thing. The excitement is, okay, we're good now, but once we see these people work their way up through the pipeline and get in the pipeline, what are we going to look like then?
Yes, yes. You know what I love about this most is that this is something that really speaks to me, Chris. I love, you know, when I'm on my campus and, you know, I'm at Kiefer now. And so I think about, you know, what could we all be a part of? I love taking something and then bringing people along to make something bigger than yourself. Sure. And that's really what I commend you three on doing, is this is foundational work, but it really is growing something bigger than yourself that will last long after you're gone. And I love that. To me, it just builds our credibility as a district too, Mr. Calvert, when you have this framework in place and you're able to really articulate what it means to be a new Caney ISD employee, all the way down. And I love that this would even go down to the students. That's amazing. And that really builds our credibility, and it'll draw people to, I think that'd be a good recruitment tool, right, Miss Gates? Yep. And so I really appreciate you coming. This was very interesting. I didn't know some of these things, Chris. This is great.
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot from this podcast.
Yes.
Not being a part of the committee or anything like that. So now it's like, I'm a part of it.
Yes, absolutely.
I didn't find out about it till the graphic design process.
So we are so grateful that you joined us today. Thank you so much for your insight. And this great things are in store for New Caney ISD.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Great talk.
Thank you so much.